You kind of live in an oxymoron when you've got ADHD, and I know a lot of people kind of talk about this. You know, I thrive in chaos, but I very deeply need structure. I'm inherently super social and I thrive in social situations, but equally I need a lot of time alone.
What I can tell you is there's a whole scale. I'm either literally one end of it or the other. And it feels like you just swung, which is quite inspiring.
It really was like an unraveling of like these unhealthy, I suppose, coping mechanisms, right?
Dopamine providers.
The dopamine hitters, yes.
Yeah, you've gone from an extreme. And actually, I used to lecture it the other way.
And I suppose I've been living by myself, so for me this was so normal. I didn't have anyone to highlight like how focused, obsessive, hyper focused that I was during this time. My boyfriend at the time would be like, oh, should we just go like check out the nice nature? And I'd be like, no, like I need to work.
That's where we can inspire other people.
Yeah.
Is if you try and say, right, stop all those things that are satisfying your addictive behaviour need and do nothing, that's not going to work. Emily, welcome.
Thank you.
Made it here.
You did?
What made you want to come on this and be filmed, do you think?
Ooh, strong opening.
Yes, straight in there.
She had no choice. We sat next to each other. I did us breakfast, so I booked her in there and then.
Yeah, literally, I literally booked in with no choice. But since we are here, I'm grateful to be here because I feel like I got my ADHD diagnosis like this year. And so it's something that I'm sort of like processing with like an official diagnosis, but obviously something I've lived with, you know, all of my life. So actually to have a forum, like talk about it, I think is really important, and, you know, be able to process everything a little bit more with two very lovely, safe, kind humans. And hopefully it might help someone else that's listening.
Yeah,
That's great. Great why to be here. What led to you wanting to get your diagnosis?
So when I don't want to like tell you the whole life story, but when I was 19, I got my dyspraxia diagnosis when I was at uni. And I always felt that that diagnosis did not give me the full picture of what was going on in my brain. And so throughout the years, I could just feel that something didn't feel quite right, and I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. And so to actually get a diagnosis and to have some like confirmation that I wasn't completely going like insane and just feeling a little bit off all the time, and that there was actually something in my brain that, you know, not that it wasn't quite right, because it's just a different way of your brain working, but it was just nice to have that confirmation and then be able to look back and realize and understand myself better in a world where I felt very misunderstood.
Thank you for that.
in looking at that, and that's strong and admirable the way you've put that, and that self journey, that self exploration, not being happy with the first attempt at an explanation of some of the things going on and pursuing it. What in particular, as you go back in your life, what do you think now when you look back? Now the one thing I've learned is when somebody does have a genuine diagnosis or something, they can look back and re-reference life going back. When you look back, what do you think you re-reference now with this new knowledge that you've got?
I think like the extremism of myself.
There's some stories there, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they're
How alive does your face come
like,
then?
what time does this go
We're
out?
pre-watershed.
I don't know if we can talk about them on here. So yeah, the so the extremism, the impulsivity, and I think the you kind of live in an oxymoron when you've got ADHD, and I know a lot of people kind of talk about this, but I really relate to it in a sense that, like, you know, I thrive in chaos, but I very deeply need structure. I'm inherently super social and I thrive in social situations, and you know, I think that's why I built my career in hospitality, because I, you know, love people, but equally I need a lot of time alone, right? And then I could be hyper focused and I'll get like 10 people's jobs done, or I'm just not interested and we're just not going to go there, and I can't do anything.
It's either or. There's no sort of middle ground. You're
Yeah.
Sanjamar now, or
Yeah, I think I've been able to teach myself a lot more middle ground, like in the last few years, So when I look at my life, I think it's been difficult to manage that mid ground and like ebbing and flowing between these two states, which inherently can be difficult to manage. But now I can understand that. I can actually speak to myself more and be like, oh, maybe this is like your ADHD, and maybe we should think about this before we dive into something or say yes or, book 10 things in a day in the social calendar or whatever it might be, right?
There's a little voice that's now wasn't there. And we joked, right? And I said there's stories there, but had you actually got, from a lived experience point of view, a story that would almost sum up that period of time, particularly a younger version of you, where that extreme Emily kind of, you can look back on it and go,
I think it was probably like when I was drinking, right? I started drinking from a really young age, probably like 12. And I think inherently I got into hospitality because it was people, which I love, and essentially free alcohol, which I love. So I was like, oh, great, I can get paid to do these two things from a really young age. And I'd probably see, like, when I look back, like extremism and like when I was drinking or drug taking, it would go on for, once I'd started, I couldn't stop. And that was like a reoccurrence, like in my life until, 27, and I completely changed my life. But, that was always a factor there, whether it was I'd have a period without it and then I'd go back to it. But it was always an extreme like situation. But again, was very normalized in hospitality and in my career. And in the people that I was kind of hanging out with, wasn't questioned.
What was the shift? What happened at 27 that made you want to stop?
I think it was the mental health element for me. Like, I was feeling super low a lot of the time, and I was just in a constant cycle of going out. And again, it was also my job, which was super fun, may I add. Like, I don't look back on these times and regret any of these times either, because they had a lot of value and a lot of fun, and I met some amazing people. But equally, there's only so long you can go on that trajectory before you don't get yourself in a good space, like mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And that is the place that I had reached. And so I needed to change my lifestyle, which I did. And, has been a journey of self-discovery ever since. And I suppose ADHD is a part of that self-discovery journey.
So you diagnosed ADHD.
Yeah.
You've had a poor relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
Sober now, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. Proudly.
Yeah.
You're not alone on that journey with someone with ADHD. It's a very common. It's a very common trajectory. A lot of people. You're relatively unusual for me to talk to, because you were in an industry that was almost encouraging you, if not forcing you, to partake in alcohol in that. For a lot of people, alcohol and ADHD is the first part of their self-medication journey, starting to normalize things and help. When you look back, did you ever feel that alcohol gave you any normalization, or was it party regardless?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started drinking because I was very curious about it, number one. And I could see I think even at 12, I could see, adults are doing it. And so I wanted to feel more like grown up. So that was like the first step. But then I think as I got into drinking more, it was around, my brain was inherently very difficult to be in. And I think alcohol allowed me to escape myself. And I think I didn't realize how much I had been escaping myself until I did go on my hangover-free journey at 27 and eradicate all of that from my life. And then I was left with myself to figure out my brain. And I was like, I still don't, alcohol hasn't really solved what was going on in my brain. And I think removing alcohol and removing drugs made me realize why I drank, because it was inherently difficult being in my brain.
Right, I'm with you. So if I play that back, if I may, because there's a bit more I want to just explore for the benefit of other people, that you didn't really know what was going on when you were in the middle of it, but when you stopped that and went on, it's a great expression, can I just say, hangover free. I think it's it's a warm expression for something that can be quite difficult, isn't it? And I think it's a great expression. You then realised perhaps why you were in that position. But many a person I've spoken to with ADHD over the years, especially in the offending community, when I was working in the offending community, would say that my progression was alcohol, which actually isn't sustainable to hold down life when you're drunk, because people know. Then when I started taking things like cocaine, people didn't know because I wasn't drunk. I was just high, but that high was not a mega drug burst high. It was normalizing me to the point where my brain wasn't so noisy. So we talk about the progression from alcohol to drugs, and we try and understand why. And one of the reasons is that you can't actually function as a drunk because people know. What was your journey in that regard? You've mentioned alcohol, you've mentioned drugs. Was it a progression for you?
Yeah. It was definitely a progression. And I felt like I could drink better when I was taking drugs, and I felt more like drugs didn't really, I know they did affect me hugely, but they also didn't affect me as much as alcohol did, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if I was to take drugs, I could drink normally, so to speak, even though, there isn't necessarily normal. I don't necessarily believe in alcohol being completely normalized, but that's, a different conversation. So I felt that by taking drugs, it was easier for me to drink, and it made my brain feel less all over the place. I felt more like myself, I suppose.
I remember an offender in the custody office expressing that there were 4 of us, and when I took cocaine, I was able to sit down and watch Coronation Street. When they took cocaine, they wanted to party. And you're saying, when I take drugs, I was able to drink normally. It was almost like one thing normalizing you to facilitate something that was more. It's a bizarre connection. That's what I'm getting to, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it plays back to self-medication through unlawful substances, as they are, things like cocaine and amphetamine and things. For the person with ADHD, it's often not to party hard, it's to actually normalize, so you can actually go and then do something else that you would not be able to do. And what it facilitated you in that, what you just say, is drug taking facilitated me being able to drink better. And then look at the industry you're in. That's fascinating. I've never seen that correlation and that link before. And you must have had to work, I'm presuming here, challenge asking really, how hard was it to pull out of that at the age of 27 and become sober and social? Is that the expression you use?
Yeah, I mean, that's the community that I then created from stopping drinking. How difficult was it? It wasn't like, it was a challenge, but I think I'd just got to the point where I was just kind of done with it all. And I knew that I didn't want to compromise my life because I was no longer drinking. So I wanted to still do my job role, which was in nightlife. I still wanted to go out. I still wanted to go to new places, meet new people, still have my social life. Like, I didn't want this decision to affect the life that I had, even though I had to change a lot. And there are many different changes and compromises that you have to make to go on a sober journey when you're in that space. So I don't want to say that isn't a thing, because it very heavily is. However, in my situation, I knew that if I was to stay in the state that I was in, it wasn't going to end up in a good space. And I wanted to be in a good space. So what did that mean? I had to go get help, and I had to make the necessary changes. And because I was working in nightlife, I didn't have time to be like, oh, well, I can't go out, or I can't be around alcohol or any of those things. Like, I just had to be, well, I made this decision. I'm getting the support that I need, which at the time was therapy, exercise, meditation, starting my own community. And I'm just going to crack on, and I just don't have to drink, and I'm just not going to engage in those like negative behaviours anymore.
Did you change your environment? Because that's 15 years. So to that point at 27 was like a whole life of habit forming. It's a fair play to you, because that was what I was going to ask. To say, not just how did you manage to play it, but how long did it take? Because I used to smoke cigarettes until from sort of 15 to 21, 22. And I used to get really frustrated with myself that once I decided I wanted to quit because I didn't like the feeling anymore, and I realised how unhealthy I was feeling, having always felt fit from sport and so on, which I wasn't doing so much. The bit that really got me to quit was the fact that I didn't actually quit as easily as I thought I would. And I didn't seek therapy and any external help. I did it all through exercise, changing my habit, but I also changed my behaviour because I was partying and going out a lot more, and I actually chose to try and remove myself from that. And it wasn't on the extreme level here, but just that principle of behaviour, going back to addictive tendencies to, we both now know as ADHD. And I didn't know that at the time, but I just knew that, a bit like what I can tell you is there's a whole scale. I'm either literally one end of it or the other. And it feels like you just swung, which is quite inspiring. It feels like it wasn't too difficult for you in your own words. But was there a period of time where you battled it? Or did you literally just go woof to the other side of the pendulum and make those changes and break through?
Yes, I did. But equally, you know, like anything, there is a cause and effect, right? So yes, I was taking drugs and drinking probably at a high level. Those had gone. So therefore, my smoking became higher, and I'd have 5 lattes a day and, you know, Marlboro, 20 Marlboro lights. So I was just smoking more and drinking more coffee, right? That was the thing that would help me. And then I would look at that and be like, okay, the coffee's okay if it could just be maybe 1 a day, but the cigarettes, they've got to go. So then I'd work on that. And then I realized, you know, maybe my sugar intake isn't that great. So I'd kind of work on that. So it really was like an unraveling of like these unhealthy, I suppose, coping mechanisms, right?
Dopamine providers.
The dopamine hitters, yes.
Yeah, you've gone from an extreme. And actually, I used to lecture it the other way. And just listening to you there is like, there's Tim Willens, a great scientist and researcher in America on ADHD and drugs, lovely man, and he gave me a slide, and the slide articulates smoking to drinking to then cannabis and then cocaine and amphetamine, and that trajectory is a very common trajectory for people with addictive behaviours, and people with ADHD are far more sensitive to having addictive behaviours. It's also quicker for people with ADHD because you need to move and get that dopamine up because I've got used to that. It's not tolerable, blah, blah, blah. Move past alcohol into drugs because people are noticing and so on. So you've got a predictable path and much, much quicker. What you've just explained is the reversal. So you come at that conversation from the end point and then backed your way right out through Tim's whole model. That's the first time I've ever
coming down that
conversation of coming back down. And the reversal of that. And you articulate it well. So what's your addiction now? Because you're still an addictive person, the same person. What's your addiction now that you replaced it with that's clearly healthier?
Kettle chips.
Okay.
I was not expecting that.
That's a brilliant one. Really?
Love them. But even that, like, because I had a kettle chip addiction, I would say. Like, I loved kettle chips. But I got braces in January, and so I couldn't eat the kettle chips. And so I've actually kind of eradicated my kettle chip addiction. So at the moment, I like to have a mushroom coffee every morning.
A what?
A mushroom coffee.
Okay, that's a new one on me. What's that?
It has like different types of mushroom in it, and it helps you, like, it's meant to help focus your brain, so it's actually quite good for ADHD.
Your lion's mane.
Exactly. There we go.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing at the moment I say that I cannot live without. Like, if I don't have that in the morning, that I don't feel quite right. And probably like a little bit of an unhealthy scroll on social media before bedtime. I think that's pretty good considering.
I think it's amazing.
Like where we were. Like,
but get back to the scale. If anything, that's almost proved the point. You're right back almost at zero, but you look like you're kind of bright-eyed for it. Was there a deliberate decision to go that kind of mushroom coffee because of the ADHD?
Yeah.
So, okay. So there's certain changes because it's only April and we're now October. So I wondered if you had started to bring in anything that you knew now you've got your diagnosis that would actually bring in anything that supports that.
Yes. And mushroom coffee is one of them.
Yeah.
Mainly because I'm not 100% sure if I want to take medication. And so therefore I'm just trying to like explore what is ADHD for me without that, and what are the coping mechanisms and the different like support systems, I suppose, that I can bring in to help support my brain. So I think that's like the journey that I'm on currently with the ADHD. And then when it comes like back to like the getting sober piece, I also want to highlight that I did say no to lots of things at the beginning, right? Like I would change my meetings for my dog. So before I might have said, oh, I'll meet you at the nightclub, and I'll do, I don't know, a meeting with the owner of the nightclub at 12 p.m. and we would have a drink together. But then I shifted that to, oh, why don't we go to a spin class and grab a coffee afterwards? Or, you know, so I would still be doing my job role. And yes, I would still be going out, but I wouldn't necessarily be in a nightclub till 3 a.m. I would go there until 12, so I could still experience what I needed to experience, say hello to who I need to say hello to, but then go to bed to make sure I could get up and go to my gym routine. So it wasn't like, oh, I didn't completely change my life. I did completely change my life, but I did it in a way where I could still be successful in what I was doing without putting myself at risk.
That's smart.
So
really smart decision making. Yeah.
Do you exercise a lot?
I do like to exercise, yeah.
What's your kind of regime?
I love a Barry's boot camp. I love a hot pod yoga, a little run, a walk.
And how often do you exercise, do you think?
I'd say like 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Mainly for my mental health, though.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
You know, we've taken away those other things. There's still got to be something, and that's what I'm pursuing ruthlessly in the conversation, really.
100%.
What are the other things? Because that's where we can inspire other people.
Yeah.
Is if you try and say, right, stop all those things that are satisfying your addictive behaviour need and do nothing, that's not going to work.
No.
We have to accept the need for that dopamine, that need for that addictive.
You have a vibration of people as well, don't you? Like community is a big thing for you.
Yeah. And I view it as like energy, right? Like when you've got this brain, or, you know, even when you've got an addiction, like I'm looking at like my addictive side of me, or the part of me that was drinking too much or whatever it might be and being destructive, like it's an energy. So every day I get to choose where I put that energy. At that point in my life, I didn't know it, but I was putting this energy into something that was unhealthy for me, like not healthy coping mechanisms, and things were not serving me. Every day I get to wake up and I get to choose, how do I want to direct that part of myself? Because it's not saying that that part of me doesn't exist and completely being like, well, that part of me is okay now, or that it's not here, or it's been swept under the carpet. It's like bringing that part of me to the forefront and being okay with it, but then saying, okay, well, every day, how would you like to progress with that and make sure that you're living your life as healthy, as impactful, as mindfully as you can to look after that part of yourself?
So I'm relating back to the conversation we had many months ago with Kit. And Kit was very the same. And one day I'll introduce you to Kit. She's currently off on a big adventure walking through Europe. But she had problems with addiction, and came through it like yourself. And she accepts that that's who she is, and she doesn't look back on that or look at that part of her needed routine as a demon. She accepts that and made friend with it so that she can channel and harness it. And it's exactly what you're saying. We got to get to a sublime state of awareness to get to that comfortable place, haven't we?
Yeah.
And such a heightened level to get there. But then looking at yourself in the mirror and acknowledging, do you know what, I'm a good person, and I know, and these are the things that I need to do today with my whole self to get my whole self to a point where I'll feel good when I put my head on the pillow at the end of the day. And what I'm hearing you say is that incredible level of awareness, and then a positive mindset, and that can sound really crappy, can't it? A positive mindset to channel that into something that's healthy as opposed to channeling it into something that's unhealthy. We talked just before we went on camera about you're just about to embrace a phase of your life called your pause. Yeah, look how alive your face has just come. Talk to me about the pause you're just about to do, because that's very ADHD as well.
Yeah, so I think like back in 2018, I went straight into creating a community called Sober and Social, which essentially is a hangover-free lifestyle brand that runs alcohol-free events and does talks for brands and businesses to help empower a hangover-free lifestyle. So I've been doing that for the last 7 years. And I think obviously I went straight from being in probably like a chaotic state in my life to then changing, you know, those habits and my patterns and behaviors, but then putting that all into sober and social. And I've done that for the last 7 years. It's been incredible, and I'm immensely proud of everything that like I've achieved through it. But I think I wanted some space to just put that on pause. It takes up a lot of my life, and I've always had it alongside a full-time job. And my work is in hospitality. So as you can imagine, it's very social. It's very people-facing. It's a lot of energy. And then I started a side hustle that is also, guess what, very people-heavy, very social. And so the two of them combined, I'm, you know, constantly exerting a lot of energy and not actually having a lot of space in my life. So I just wanted to go through a phase, or a chapter, as I like to call it, of pausing sober and social, apart from my workshops, because I really love hosting workshops. So I can't pause everything, because that wouldn't be in alignment with my ADHD brain. But you know, the community side and the event side, and maybe even the social media side. So taking a whole break from social media and focusing on one aspect of my life, which will be my full-time job, and just seeing with a bit more space, how do I feel? What do I want? Spending more time with people that I love, and just not being, well, I think I'll always be multi-passionate. I think we are, but what will I feel like?
Yeah, gives you perspective now, doesn't it? I mean, will you miss it? Will you look back and, you know, and then what would you change? It's really smart thing to do, actually. Not that you can do that.
And again, I hear another reduction in dopamine fix. Sober and Social's given you something that's been totally compelling, full on, to get it where it's got.
Yeah.
So there's been a fix of dopamine coming through that, through the challenges, making it successful, meeting people, making the mission of being sober and social successful. I guess the danger is, as you pause and you talk about your full-time job, you've got to make sure you're still going to get your dopamine fix from something, haven't you?
Yeah.
And when we were talking off camera, we were miking up. You said, I'm going to do one thing. And then you explained to me what those 5 things were that was the one thing you were going to do. So there's a healthy recognition in you, lightheartedly but healthily, that actually you're not a one person. You're going to need to still get your hit of dopamine. You're still going to need your challenges. You're accommodating your challenges, accommodating yourself. So it's not going to be one thing, is it? It's going to be more.
I mean, the reality is maybe not. But I suppose the point is the space of the exploration, right? And acknowledging that this is a piece of my life that I have to negotiate certain things that maybe I don't want to negotiate anymore. And what I mean by that is like time with my family, time with my friends, space in my actual head, because it's constantly thinking about it, of the next event or the next brand that we can work with, or the next kind of social media post or whatever it is. So knowing that there is there filling my brain, it's like, okay, well, I can pause this side of it. And I have the intention, which maybe I haven't had before, the intention is there of me clearing more space, and then just allowing that exploration of like, what is that space for me? And being mindful of my behaviors and of my patterns. And that space could get filled with 5 to 10 more things. But given that I really intentionally want to not do that, what can that look like? And can I set a timeline? Like, is that just a month? And then check in with myself of how I'm feeling.
See, I listened to that, right? And I'm thinking, you just said that's really ADHD, to take a pause. I'm listening to you thinking I'm spinning all these different plates, running at 1,000 miles an hour, which I really identify with you, but I haven't thought about taking a pause, and I'm ADHD. So I'm still challenged with the amount of time I'm spending with my family and the time I'm giving to certain things. So that's actually quite an interesting. I'm listening to that thinking, should I be taking a pause?
I don't think you've had the traumatic triggers.
Right.
And I think that's where the difference is. I've known you for a year or so now, and I don't think in anything I've seen, you are fueled by the pace of your life.
Yeah.
Your dopamine hit is connecting people and meeting new people.
Right.
That's who you are, without a shadow of a doubt to me. That's going really, really well. There's the only tension there is the tension with being at home with your lovely wife and girls.
Yeah.
Now, none of those tensions are giving you a reason for change.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you can carry on. Your tensions along the way have given you many reasons for change, haven't they? And you've recognised those were there. A lot of people don't, but you've recognised.
That's what I was getting at, and I'm trying to work out if I need to. I mean, I can recognise and learn about burnout, which is another key part that could come if you hadn't stopped, and I've got to be mindful of that. But the trauma side of things, I get. Yeah, always articulate you are.
And I think as well, like coming back to burnout, like I really did experience burnout, you know, a few years ago, of like being in this very extreme place when I started sober and social. Like I was honestly like obsessed with it. Like, you know, during lockdown I got furloughed, and I kind of look back and just think, well, why couldn't you have just like watched some TV and maybe, I don't know, read a few books? But I didn't. I started a membership, I started a podcast, I did 3 life coaching qualifications, I was doing brand deals in my kitchen every Thursday, I was doing online events for our community. Like I was obsessed with it. And coming out of lockdown, you know, I didn't realize I'd been getting up and I'd been at my laptop from maybe 6 a.m. I was not stopping until, I don't know, 11, 12. I was maybe having like 1 meal a day. I was not leaving my flat. Like I was in it.
Goes back to this all in.
I was completely all in, and I was in my relationship, and we'd moved into a new flat together. And I suppose I'd been living by myself. So for me, this was so normal. I didn't have anyone to highlight like how focused, obsessive, hyper focused that I was during this time. But I honestly wasn't eating properly. Like we'd moved somewhere where it was like had a really nice like nature reserve, and my boyfriend at the time would be like, "Oh, should we just go like check out the nice nature?" And I'd be like, "No, like I need to work." Or should we go to Sainsbury's and do a shop? No, I can't go to Sainsbury's. Like I've got too much to do. Like I was fully in it, and I burnt myself out and like came out of that very unwell. And I think again, it's the learnings of that has kind of led to me and this decision now, in a way, that I'm very aware that I can go to this place with whatever I'm doing. If I'm really passionate about something, I have the capacity to not care about anything else and to just be on this thing and be obsessed with it.
Goes back to self-awareness. I'm conscious of time, but just with the fact that community is so important to you, and you've got this community you built up over these years.
Yeah.
Post-diagnosis.
Yeah.
How many people have you been able to tell everyone you've got ADHD? How many people have sort of come forward ultimately thinking, oh gosh, maybe I do? And that awareness that you've brought to a community that might then go and get themselves a diagnosis.
It's really interesting because actually I don't know if I have really told people that I've got
I just assumed you had. No. You have now.
Apart from being here, I honestly haven't like really spoken about it in a...
Well, you get where I'm going with that, right? There's a community of people that identify with you, have been brought together by you, and that's something you are brilliant at, clearly. But then actually, how many of those people have come to that community because they're running away from something, they want support, and they might well have ADHD that got them into the behaviour in the first place to then want to be part of what you're doing?
I think probably a lot. You know, I think, like Phil said earlier around it's not uncommon for people with ADHD, neurodiversity, to have had issues with alcohol and with drugs. And so I think, you know, a lot of people...
It becomes a survival mechanism, right?
Yeah, it does. And, you know, we've got to wrap up, sadly, because what you've exposed us to in conversation is, I don't know, what words would I would say the healthy diary of an addict. From alcohol, substances, a passionate project. How you described your COVID was an addict's COVID, wasn't it? You were addicted to the laptop and what was being produced. You were addicted to community work through the webinars and things you were doing, and then you work. And now you're going to take this pause. Now I think you've got the strength to take the pause because you now understand that you are an addict. Mm-hmm. But it's an addict. An ADHD addict is different. An ADHD addict isn't necessarily a cocaine addict or an alcohol addict. It's an addict. He could be addicted to train spotting, but you've got to do it. You've got to get your dopamine push. You've got to get your hit. It doesn't matter. And you're going to pause now to find out who you really are.
Yeah.
And That's going to take another set of strengths and another set of courageous behaviours. But I think you stand every chance of succeeding because you've gone through all those addictive processes, which is all, it's not been a survival for you. I think you're looking back now and think, well, that's determined who I've got to be today. And you can look back at that and think, well, that's where it was and I ain't going back there.
Yeah.
But I do recognise now where I've been. I want to know how you get on when you release the pause button, what that gave you, because I'm excited to see what that finds for you.
Yeah.
And I think you've got the right people, knowing some of the people you know and hang out with. You've got some great people around you who will help you discover what that pause gives you.
Yeah.
Your ADHD diagnosis undoubtedly is helping you put the optics on that as well, because you can understand yourself more.
Yeah.
I'd love to be part of that journey and see how that goes, because I think you've got incredible moral courage and physical courage that will see you through it. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thanks for being part of today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Enjoy it.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely to
That's
see
so
you,
much fun,
babe.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Emily.